Mercedes disappoints once more, and the season ahead looks bleak. Despite high expectations, they're faltering badly. Fans thought they'd be fighting at the top, but they're actually performing worse than last season. What's behind their decline over the past 3 seasons? Mercedes had high hopes for their W15 car to bring them back into the running for the championship in 2024. However, based on early signs, it seems the car isn't quite meeting the high standards set by Red Bull and Ferrari. Although the Silver Arrows aren't exactly slow, they find themselves in a tough battle with McLaren and Aston Martin near the top of the field. But despite their decent position, the car's performance so far hasn't lived up to the team's expectations. To understand where they might be lacking, let's take a closer look at what some key people from the team have said about the car this season. This should give us some insight into the areas they need to improve to match their ambitions. One area that needs a lot of attention for the Mercedes W15 is high-speed cornering. This has been a big concern for them so far. Lewis Hamilton talked about it after a race in Jeddah, where he was battling with Lando Norris. He said that when they got to the fast corners like the first sector, the McLaren was much quicker. Hamilton compared it to racing in a completely different league. He mentioned that while the car performs okay in slower corners and decently in medium-speed corners, it struggles a lot in the high-speed ones. This has been a frustrating pattern for Hamilton, as he's noticed it for 3 years in a row now. He's optimistic, though, and believes they can make improvements. Hamilton mentioned that they might need to make some significant changes to the car to catch up with the top teams. He also noted that the leading teams have different approaches in some areas, so there's room for Mercedes to improve and close the gap. One big problem for the Mercedes W15 is its stability, especially at the back of the car. Both Lewis Hamilton and George Russell have experienced moments where the rear of the car suddenly loses grip, making it hard for them to trust it, especially in fast corners. Toto Wolff, the team boss, talked about this after qualifying in Saudi Arabia. He said that even though the car is fast, it's very tricky to drive consistently. George Russell was doing well in qualifying until he lost control of the car's rear end, and Lewis Hamilton couldn't push harder because he wasn't getting the right feedback from the car. In simpler terms, the car is like walking on a tightrope, very sensitive and easy to lose control of. This instability is making it tough for the drivers to extract maximum performance from the car. So when it comes to downforce, Mercedes is facing some challenges with their W15 car. It's not just about putting a bigger rear wing on the car to increase downforce, as Toto Wolff, the team's boss, explained. He admitted that the W15 naturally lacks downforce compared to their faster rivals. This is particularly evident in high-speed corners, where the team is losing a significant amount of time. Wolff mentioned that simply adding a bigger rear wing isn't the solution, because there's more to it than that. Even though they've tried different setups on Lewis Hamilton's car, they're still struggling to understand why they're losing so much time in high-speed corners. In simpler terms, it's like they're missing an important piece of the puzzle when it comes to generating downforce. They're quick in other areas of the track, but they're still trying to figure out how to improve their performance in high-speed corners. If you're a Mercedes fan feeling a bit uneasy remembering the bouncy W13 from 2022, take a deep breath. Sure, there's been some bouncing again in the first couple of races this year, but it's not as bad as before. The team is aware of it and they're working on fixing it. Andrew Shovlin, who's in charge of engineering at the trackside for Mercedes, mentioned after the Saudi Arabia race that they noticed a bouncing issue during qualifying. However, it wasn't as pronounced during the actual race. He explained that during the race, with more fuel on board and slightly slower speeds, the bouncing tends to settle down and isn't as much of a problem. So while it's something they're keeping an eye on, it's not causing panic within the team just yet. George Russell, one of the drivers for Mercedes, talked to reporters in Jeddah about their struggles on the track. He mentioned that the issue they're facing isn't just about the car bouncing around. It's more complicated than that. These modern cars are incredibly complex, with lots of factors at play, like the tires, which can be tricky to manage. Right now, they're still trying to figure out exactly what's causing their performance deficit. Lewis Hamilton shared his thoughts on the bouncing car situation in Bahrain when asked by the media, including PlanetF1.com. He mentioned that it's not just their car experiencing this issue. It seems like many others are too. He believes their car's ride height, which affects how low or high it sits on the track, was set up correctly. However, things got worse in Saudi Arabia. Hamilton explained to Sky F1 a week later that despite trying various changes to the car's setup, they couldn't get rid of the bouncing problem. He described how the bouncing affects the car's balance, especially in high-speed sections of the track like the first sector in Saudi Arabia. This instability makes it challenging to maintain control, especially at speeds of 160 to 170 miles per hour. In contrast, rival drivers like Max Verstappen can navigate these sections without such issues. Hamilton emphasized the importance of resolving this problem, especially since it's been recurring for 3 years. They're determined to find a solution and improve their performance. So far in 2024, Mercedes has had some positive moments to cheer about. After facing an engine cooling problem that affected their cars and also their customer team Williams in Bahrain, Mercedes quickly addressed the issue by the time the Saudi Arabia race came along. Moreover, both Lewis Hamilton and George Russell have spoken positively about the new car this season right from the start. They've both praised the W15, saying it's a better starting point compared to the cars from the last 2 seasons. When asked if he was feeling discouraged after the Bahrain Grand Prix, Russell responded to the media, including PlanetF1.com, saying that he wasn't feeling down at all. He highlighted that both him and Hamilton have a much better car this year, which they believe they can further improve upon. Hamilton echoed Russell's sentiments after qualifying in Sakir, mentioning that the car is fantastic and a significant improvement over previous years. He mentioned that it feels more stable and enjoyable to drive, although they still have work to do to find more speed, as evident from their qualifying performance. One of the areas where the Mercedes W15 has shown strength is in low-speed performance, but it's been a bit weak in high-speed corners. Lewis Hamilton pointed this out in Jeddah, saying they need to add more stability for those faster turns to be competitive. He mentioned that if they can improve the car's performance in high-speed corners, it would enhance their overall package and put them in a better position to fight for wins. However, he acknowledged that there's still work to be done. The team is actively working on solutions back at their factory, and they're taking the first steps to address this issue at the upcoming race in Melbourne. Andrew Shovlin, the team's trackside engineering director, explained that they're analyzing data from previous races and tests, not just from Jeddah. They're looking at various departments like aerodynamics and vehicle dynamics to come up with a plan for improvements. They're also planning experiments to guide their efforts towards better performance. Mercedes had a fantastic run from 2014 to 2020, making incredibly powerful engines that gave them a big advantage on the track. They were able to maintain this lead because of a system called the token system, which limited how much teams could change their engines. This meant other manufacturers struggled to catch up. Additionally, Mercedes engine customers didn't have access to the same performance settings until around 2017 due to regulations. However, they took good care of their engines because of cost restrictions. Although teams like Williams and McLaren were competitive in the early years, McLaren's switch to Honda and Williams' decline led to Mercedes dominating. With their engine advantage, Mercedes could afford to add extra downforce to their cars, helping them perform even better. But when the rules changed and their advantage was gone, Mercedes struggled to keep up. They tried various iterations of their car, but they couldn't find the same success. Now, in a setup where aerodynamics are key and all teams have equal opportunities, Mercedes is facing difficulties. They need to design their cars to be aerodynamically efficient, but they lack the expertise in this area. It's crucial for Mercedes not to air their struggles publicly. They're in a situation similar to what Red Bull faced before, where Red Bull had the upper hand but now face challenges due to new regulations like the cost cap, which slows down the progress of other teams. Share your thoughts in the comments below.